here we are looking at the creative process for the last 6 weeks or so, right? We began our conversation in our class talking about the human condition and how various cultures describe what it means to be human a little bit different, but they all provide stories that show paths of transcendence, ways of moving, of growing and moving past whatever condition you are in, right? Which can often be limiting, oppressive, lacking in freedom. The creative process that we're focusing on, I mean, we're looking at things like art and, business, but that process mimics the process of growth, of transcendence that all of these culture stories talk about, which is why every week I try to expose you to new stories. Yeah. So far, we know this process involves an ordinary world. So if we relate this to your projects, there's an ordinary world that you are leaving behind pertaining to whatever it is you want to do. An ordinary world of making clothes, an ordinary world of making photography, an ordinary world of making film, an ordinary world of creating a video game. You have an ordinary world, beliefs, habits, assumptions, normal ways of doing stuff. But if we're going to be creative, we have to move beyond that. Think back to our definitions of creativity: manifesting something beyond the ordinary world, transcending beyond ordinary patterns, rules, structures. So when you decide to do that, we refer to that as answering the call. So you will all answer the call. I mean, if you are all going to complete your projects, you will have decided to leave behind your ordinary world. And then at some point, you might have struggles because you can't think of anything other than your ordinary world. You can't envision something new because the only thoughts you have are of what you're used to. So you have to find some way to exhibit cognitive flexibility and cut the ties you have with what you've been raised or conditioned to believe about filmmaking and visual art, right? And sculptures or poetry, whatever it is you're working on. You're going to have to generate ideas for your project, new ways of doing things, new ways of creating different things. And in class, we focused on 5 different strategies. Last class, we looked at the 5th aspect, which was the darkened cave, retrieving the reward. So in many stories, heroic stories from various cultures, there's often a point where the main character is defeated, where they feel lost, where they try everything, but they can't get over the hump and finally defeat the dragon, or win the boxing tournament, or find the romantic partner of their dreams. So they get into a dark place. What the stories show us is that it's often in those quiet and dark times that something miraculous occurs, right? An idea comes to them, the solution comes to them, a new potion is given to them, a stranger walks into their lives out of nowhere with a new insight for them. Well, in the creative process, it turns out that that's kind of what's needed too, right? It's that letting go of forcing. Sometimes in the creative process, what you need to do is stop trying so hard. So let's review this so we can move on to the 6th. So how are we supposed to attract creative insights? Well, you learned about not thinking, right? This is referred to as defocused attention. Instead of focusing your attention on trying to solve the problem, you need to let go of trying to solve the problem. We talked about this at the beginning of the term, where you are struggling to find your keys, and you're looking, and you can't find it, and you stop looking, and then all of a sudden you find them. This is what the 5th aspect is about. It's about stopping to struggle so much, right? Defocus, no longer focused on what it is you're trying to achieve, because you need an open mind. You need clarity in order to leave room for ideas to come to you. So the emphasis this past weekend was for you to find a way to relax, right? To avoid stress, because as we saw with the studies from last class, it's the stress that gets in the way of getting insights Remember, the study said if your brain are in these alpha wave states, states of relaxation, that's when we're most likely to attain an insight. And there's tons of examples throughout history, history of science, history of mathematics, history of poetry and arts, where this is exactly what happens to people. They struggle with whatever they're doing, finding a solution, finding a new idea, and then they decide to walk away, do something to relax, and all of a sudden there's the idea. Right? Lots of stories of poets who just, go on a vacation, just walk outside and enjoy nature, and all of a sudden an idea comes to them. Stories of mathematicians who works really hard at trying to solve some equation, and then they say themselves, I can't do it, and then they just walk away. Maybe they travel the world, and all of a sudden the idea is there. Thomas Edison, if you don't recall from your textbook, here's a story that I like you to have in your notes. So Thomas Edison would go to sleep with metal plates beside his bed, and he would hold ball bearings in his hand. Why would he do that? Why would he go to bed with ball bearings in his hand with metal plates beside his bed?
So he'd wake up?
When?
Like right before he would fall asleep, he would drop the balls and it would hit the plates and he'd wake up.
I mean, that's pretty crazy, right? Because he knew that it was in those really relaxed states right before sleeping where his mind would have all of these interesting ideas. Yeah, thanks for reminding us of what he did. In our society, our ordinary world seemingly is one where we have to be busy. We have to be proactive. But there is a misperception there. It's as if, people aren't aware of how important it is to let go and relax. Scientifically, we see that our brains need that space in order to allow ourselves to have access to new perspectives, right? So don't underappreciate the need to step away, right? To give yourself some mental space to allow ideas to come to you. We talked about Einstein's example last class, where he came up with a new idea of gravity by relaxing and playing violin. Art Fry was a chemical engineer at 3M. So if you remember, we discussed 3M in the past. It's a company that does a lot of creative products, from sponges to Scotch tape to Scotch Guard to most things that you can find in your kitchens. Well, Art Fry was playing music one day, and if you know much about playing music, right? Art Fry had his music book open, with a book of songs, and he wanted a way to mark certain pages so that's easy for him to go to those pages. Well, as a chemical engineer at 3M, he was already exposed to Scotch tape, but he knew that Scotch tape would be too sticky, and it's kind of hard to see Scotch tape as a marker for pages. So he came up with this idea of Post-it notes to mark his music book. And he came up with it by playing music, by simply relaxing, doing something not related to chemistry, not related to work. And it was by doing that thing that's totally unrelated to his job that he had this idea that kind of, we all use Post-it notes now because of this guy, right? I mean, think of how many more ideas for solutions to problems, new perspectives you could come up with if you just gave yourself some space to do that. So for your projects, this is what I want you to do. You're going to be writing about how you try to make room to relax. You try to give yourself some space not to focus on the project. I want you to write down any examples of ideas that just came to you when you weren't looking. Those would be what you'd be writing about as an experience of the fifth aspect. Okay? The last aspect of the creative process It's referred to as the return home. So in many of these heroic stories, the victor comes back home to his old kingdom. The football team returns home victorious, right? The woman or man that went searching for their one true love finds them, and they start literally a new home together. So in the creative process, for us, this means bringing your ideas to life, actually manifesting something. What's this point of the creative process? Well, I mean, it's really about starting to do stuff, right? That's kind of what the 6 aspects about. When we say returning home, we mean making something, right? Whether it's making the thing for your project, or it's about you making yourself anew. Remember, transcending the human condition, it's about growth. It's about transitioning to something different. I mean, the return home means you are creating something new. You are bringing whatever ideas you had into a reality. Thomas Edison said the following: genius is 1% inspiration and 99% perspiration. What does he mean?
The hard work is the majority of it.
Yeah, right. The majority of what you'll be doing, it takes effort. I mean, so a lot of people, I shouldn't say a lot, a good number of people love just playing around with ideas. Maybe, do you know anybody like this? They daydream about all these great business ideas and how they're going to get rich, but then they never do anything about it. Or maybe you'll hear somebody talk about how, oh yeah, I'm going to find my romantic partner, and I'm gonna try this app and that app, and I'm gonna join this club, and I'm gonna try to go to the bar more often, but then they don't really do anything. In order to manifest something new, it takes work, it takes effort, right? That's what the 6th aspect is about. So with the 4th and 5th, you have tons of ideas, you're going to collect ideas, but then what do you do with them? Well, you're going to have to look at them and say which ones you want to do, right? Well, okay, I have all these ideas for my, how I want to design my pants. Well, I can't do them all. Which ones I want to work on for my project? Well, you have to evaluate them. You have to think critically about which ones will work, which ones don't, right? You're going to have to set goals. You're going to have to organize your time. You're going to have to plan for a way to get done whatever it is you're trying to get done. You're going to have to gather resources. You're going to put together and try to go out and get the stuff you need for making whatever it is you're making. And when you are manifesting something into the world, you're probably going to have to be focused, right? Because it's too easy to be distracted. You all know that. You're going to probably have to be focused. You're going to probably have to rely on some skills that you have to paint, to draw, to write, to record something, to code, to make music. You're going to have to rely on some skills that you had to work hard to turn your creative ideas into a reality. What does this sound like to you? I mean, that's sort of what we do in the ordinary world, right? When we say you have to use the skills you've learned, if you're going to write a story, you have to use your skills that you learned from how, about how to write. If you're going to create your new song, you're going to have to rely on the skills that you developed to play your instrument or to use the software that creates your beats, right? So you have to, in a sense, you're going back to the ordinary world, but you bring with it some new perspectives, some new ideas. So what we're really doing is we're tying things together. And for a lot of us, this is one of the hardest things to do, because if you're told to go play, explore, have fun, or just relax, don't think so hard, on one hand, well, on the other hand, you're going to have to then be okay with working hard and focusing and being organized, because you need both things in order to manifest something new. You need these two opposite sorts of ways of living and acting. You need both of them in order to be creative. And that's confusing, not to mention difficult.